So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regen Ray. Hello, soil lovers, Regen Ray here, and welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Soil. Today, we're going to be talking all about seed dressings. My guest is Darren from Best Farming Systems. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Thanks, Ray. I'm happy to be here. My first, I've got to say, ever podcast, but thanks for inviting me on.
Excellent. Just be careful. These are contagious. You might get the bug and keep going and going. They're very fun. And we have some great conversations. So, Darren, share with the soil lovers and the farming community a little bit about yourself and what Best Farming Systems is all about.
Yeah, geez. It's funny, Ray, you sort of talk about that. I don't very often talk about myself. I'm a much better listener than I am a talker. So sort of have to bear with me. I don't get asked very often to talk about myself, but
I'll get it out of you.
How I got into this place, it's been a long curve, I guess, for me, or a lot of stepping stones for me. I'm actually finished my school and became a carpenter as my first job, and I worked in the building industry for probably a third of my career so far. That probably really set me up for being able to talk to people, I suppose, and getting on with people in that industry. You needed to get on because you work closely with quite a lot of people. And it was a pretty stark one. If you didn't get on with people, you got told. So you quickly learned how to deal with people very quickly. From there, my interest, I probably had a partner back then, and he was probably a better carpenter than I was, to be honest. But I was a much better organizer behind the scenes, and my business sort of acumen probably started off doing that job. And I found myself being the one that did a lot of the quoting and the invoicing and the paying of our wages and did more of that side of it, even though I did turn up every day and work with my partner at that time, but he was the much better builder. So I learned it's good you find out where your strengths are, and I think that's really important in actually business, to know what your limitations are and what your strengths are, and to work with it. So from there, I actually married into a family who was in a clothing importing business. So that was my next third of my current working life, and there I learned so much about business. We imported clothing, and I did a lot of travel as well. But the reason why I got involved in the agricultural side of things is we actually, in that business, leased a building to the two Canadian guys that were part of Best back then, Best Farming Systems, or Best Environmental Technologies back then. And I got on really well with them, and it enabled us to forge a relationship. And when I decided I needed a change in my life, I decided to move in with them, and I came on board with them. And I've been with Best Farming Systems ever since that day, which was back in 2009 for me.
Yeah, awesome. And I think it's really interesting when you can look back and see how all these dots join, because I know that one of the things in the farming world is that a lot of farmers are great. Like you're saying, your business partner was good at building, but you were the ones that were doing like the organization, the operations, the admin, the bookkeeping. Like that's all really important stuff, because building the buildings is 50% or maybe even 40% of the outcome. The other stuff happens behind the scenes, and being able to have that business acumen and running the behind the scenes, because I think farmers often lack that as well, where there is more business and coaching and mentoring from how to run a profitable business rather than just yielding, and growing seasons and rainfall, which is still a very important part. But it's good that you can now zoom back and see how all these little stepping stones, as you refer to them, kind of makes sense and led you to where you were. What drew you to the Best kind of brand? Like, what was it that kind of piqued your interest where you thought, well, this could be an exciting next stepping stone?
Yeah, it was actually interesting, because at that stage in my life, I was looking for a change, and there were a couple of other options for me back then as well. But I decided to why did I take this role? It's really interesting you say that. I've probably always had a fairly firm belief in being healthy in my own right, and I guess that was the reason why it really inspired me to listen about what these guys were doing, albeit a lot of years ago now, and it was much more difficult back then in the industry that we're currently in to get our message across. But there was something inside me that just sort of said something felt right about this going into this business. It was we were actually I know a lot of people talk about, you know, even in real estate and that you know, we love dealing with people, but ultimately this is where we could genuinely help people and not just talking to people, but literally on the ground, we knew that we could actually fix a lot of today's problems or help fix today's problems. So it really inspired me to learn more about it, and that I just knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely think there's that happens where you just know it's the right thing and you're kind of drawn to it. Never in a million years did I think I was going to stumble into this amazing world of soil and then find a way that I could overlap my interests and create a sweet spot. And so when you were exploring the business at the start, what was something that kind of like really stood out to you? There was like, there's something here that's going to change the future and it's going to help a more healthy system. Were they talking about things that were a little bit odd for that time in era? You know, I feel like it's a very early adopter of this movement in 2019 and 2010. What was the tone like that made you realize, no, I'm going to stick to this, even though maybe it's not as mainstream everywhere else?
Yeah, really good question, because it was definitely out there, and it was even there was a lot of pushback against what they were doing, and you know, we're sort of trained to sort of go with the flow, aren't we, a little bit in life, I think. So, which I'd probably done with a lot of my life. So I was probably ready to you know, to sort of question, I guess, what the norm was. And I really believed in what they were doing. And you know what, so I'm not a farmer at all. I've never farmed in my life, but I've learned so much, and they are probably the soil of our earth farmers. They are without a doubt the people that really run sort of the world, in my opinion. Food is something we require 3 times a day. You know, we talk about how we put lawyers and doctors sort of up there, but I've got to tell you, I don't need a doctor 3 times a day or a lawyer 3 times a day. So I think farmers are right up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And, you know, essential workers, when the climate, the world went into disarray with COVID, and everyone, you know, was still able to go out to the paddocks and pick the food. And you're right, you know, we do it every day of the week, and you know, food is, you know, just, you know, nourishing and as medicine to most people as well, and can really do wonders. So tell us a little bit more about what Best does. What's the products? What are the reasons that people get involved with the Best brand? Yeah,
so it's been it's not been an easy journey in those early days. So the way Best started, Best is actually a Canadian company. So they started back in the year 2000. As far as Best Australia goes, we actually had a group of farmers that went across to Canada in 2005 and did I guess a bit of a trip across over there to field days and what have you, and they stumbled across this product that people were using over there, and it wasn't big over there yet either, but they had at least 6 years of history over there of farmers, and they looked more into that, and when they came back to Australia, they actually got together and said, listen, there's something in this stuff and we need to have a look at it. So they actually organised to get product brought across to Australia, and it was trialled really by those 6 farmers. Now, interestingly enough, 4 of those farmers today are still doing it. 2 have actually retired. So we've still got these guys that have been on that program for that long. So it sort of says a fair bit about, you know, their belief as well in the product, which is really interesting. But we basically have no gimmicks in our business. We've basically grown from paddock to paddock, farmer to farmer. We've used the networking type system where we allow the farmers to talk to each other, and we really concentrate on our clients rather than trying to just throw things out there to get new clients just to sign up to us, where we concentrate on the ones we do have. And we hope that they talk positively about our product, and that's how we have grown. So we've gone from those 6 people to well over 3,000 customers now that we have on our books. And we also export product over to New Zealand as well. So we have a good base over there as well. So that's essentially how we've grown.
Amazing. And that's a great testament as well of the fact that the early adopters or the people who brought it over are still using the product and change their farming world. What are some of the changes that people see when they start using the product, and how do they apply it? How's the application and results like?
Yeah, so our signature product is a biostimulant. So we activate biology in the soil, and we activate that biology in any soil type as well. So we know we do that. We have data on doing that. It's then really up to the farmer to then nurture that biology and utilize the benefits of biology. So we're a little different from a lot of other companies. There are some people that try to add biology into the soil, where we work on activating what is already there. And we do that in a very technical way. Now, I'm not even privy to the exact makings of the product, but I blend it here in Australia. So I'm very well aware of what is in it and how it does work. But basically it's made up of a lot of different things, because a lot of farmers will talk about, they are trained for something to go out and for them to see a difference almost instantly, whether it be a fungicide or a pesticide. It works quite quickly, and even a fertilizer, things grow quite quickly, and they do. So to train them in this field, where what we work on is underground, is very difficult for them to see the differences. So, but with our product, we have managed to squeeze out, I guess, through technology, a lot of different plant extracts. So they are the liquid parts of a wide variety of plants. These extracts are what goes through a plant and are exudated out of root systems and feed biology. And essentially they are carbohydrates and sugars. So we have managed to extract them out of a wide variety of plants that goes into our product. We also have things like fish meal and kelp and molasses, which are all biostimulants in their own right in the product as well. And that gets sprayed out over a crop or a pasture, and then eventually into the soil, and we activate the biology. It tricks it into thinking it's in a really healthy ecosystem. So we know we can fire it up, and then they form a symbiotic relationship with the plant in order for them to then say, I'm going to give you this, and then I'll need you to go out and get the nutrients I need to grow.
I love that ability to kind of create the most ideal situation for success. It's and then really activating what's there, because I think a lot of times in this ag world is we keep adding more and more on, and there's this big realization now that while some deficiencies can play a big problem in the ag world, so can excesses. So if there's an excess of something, that can be just as more damaging, because it could be locking another vital mineral that's required, and it goes away when something else is too high. So this method of just adding more on and she'll be okay, isn't really standing up anymore. So by activating what's already there, I think that's working more along with nature and what's kind of present, and being able to wake up what's kind of sleeping, and kind of creating like a bit of a party down under the ground, where it's like you get the right, desserts out and maybe the right drinks, and everything kind of, everything loosens up, and then the party kind of gets started. So I think, you're right. When people focus a lot on what's above the ground, and you spray something and the pest disappears, or you spray something and the leaves go greener, and some people say can literally happen overnight. But when it's under the ground, unless you're getting a microscope out or measuring the yields down the track for protein and bricks and so forth, are they some of the ways that you measure the success of the product? Like, what are people looking for to get when it comes to like the results side of things, if a lot of it is happening under the ground?
Sure. And this has been the most difficult part of having a product like ours. We know we activate biology. Unfortunately, for me to go to a farmer, or our team to go to a farmer and say, listen, buy this stuff, it activates biology, they'll sit there and go, so So we probably spent the last 15, 16, 17 years explaining the benefits of active biology in your soil rather than focusing on what our product does. We have to explain, how having good active biology in your soil helps with the photosynthesis of the plant and using nature, which is nitrogen that is actually above the plant in the air, to being able to grab that and being able to fix that down into the ground and utilizing some of the nutrients that are available rather than putting synthetics on there. And listen, synthetics work. They have worked since they came on. They've no doubt increased yields, no doubt, but at what sacrifice to the soil that they're actually growing in. We just feel, and you talk about that more on, that the farmers at the moment are probably putting more and more fertilizer on to try and maintain their yields, to really focus on yields, which is at what detriment? We all know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That is without a doubt. So the more things you do to your soil, especially in heavy amounts, it will have an opposite effect at some stage. It may do some good for a little while, but it will have an opposite effect. So we are just getting back and working with nature, and it is the perfect tool, like you say, to have a party, or what we call balancing your soil system. So you can balance everything out, and we can try and lock up some of the nasties, which will eventually balance the soil out. So biology is so important in fixing your soil structure, having better water infiltration in your soil. There are so many benefits of having active biology in your soil, rather than almost a compacted just thing that a plant grows in and then we feed it everything it needs. It's not really the way nature intended to grow a plant.
Yeah, there's no one feeding the rainforest apart from the rainforest itself. No. So it's flourishing, moist, and full of life. So so because we live in a world that is very much about instant gratification, you do X and you get Y. Because I believe that maybe we need to learn the art of patience a little bit more. What kind of timeframes and how many applications do people need to do before they start seeing something, and what kind of resilience do they need to have to say, yes, this is going to happen in X seasons, or what's kind of the timeframes? Yeah, really good question. And it does vary depending on history of paddocks and how bad they are. Awesome. Certainly heavier soils, we do seem to take a little longer in heavier soils. Lighter soils, we get quick results. But to be perfectly honest with you, when we know what we're looking for now, we can actually see results quite quickly. Even in 6 to 8 weeks, very quickly, we can already see things like soil structure change, better water infiltration, because biology will aerate the soil for you. So the few things that, we need to grow, we talk about how important water is, and we know that is, but oxygen is probably more important than water. And someone told me once that, you can go without a drink for, probably a few days or even a week potentially, but I sort of dare you to try and hold your breath for more than 30 seconds. So it was a really good point. Oxygen is very important, and unfortunately our soils are very compacted now, and they're not alive, so we just use them as a base to grow. So we see results quite quickly. To answer your question, our product goes out at a really low dose as well. So it goes out at only 250 mils on a hectare of land, which is less than a can of Coke over a hectare of land, obviously mixed with a lot of water as well. But we don't need a lot, because we're not putting an input in or trying to, it's not a fertilizer. We're just trying to stimulate biology. So it doesn't need a lot. And I guess the best way that we try to explain that is it's like a signaling process. They signal each other, and they don't need a lot of or much to have the ability to signal each other, a bit like our bodies when our brain signals our hand to move or we jump because we see a snake jump out at us or something. That is adrenaline. That is a signaling process in our own body, and adrenaline in our body is measured in parts per trillion, so we don't need a lot to trigger that active life. Yeah. And I think that, because we're looking externally, even with ourselves, our own body biology, most people don't understand that. I think that's a really good point that you make there, that there's so many biological reactions happening in our body every day, and the smallest amount of dosage can have a big part to shake the body up. So if the soil works the same way, which it does, not if, the soil works the same way because it's biology, then that small amount of dosage. I think it's really interesting too, because you're talking about milliliters. I think farmers are used to like hundreds of kilos a hectare, So
you try to explain to a farmer exactly that, they'll sit there and say, what's that going to do to my, how's that going to help me? Then they'll say, can I double that? So it's very interesting, but that's where our education process comes in. And we have the best team of people around now. We would have over 30 odd distributors who are very much a mixed bunch. We've got a lot of like-minded agronomists now who are independent agronomists that have come on board with us to going down this space as well. And I've got to tell you, Ray, it's another area that we need to probably delve into a little bit, because I feel that farmers, you mentioned earlier a bit like we become very reliant on being told what to do now a little bit. We don't take on board what we're doing. We know from a farmer, they know how to drive a tractor, but they probably don't really understand how a plant grows. They're very reliant on someone else to tell them how to do that. So educating ourselves is very powerful. And once we start learning things that maybe someone else doesn't know that is supposedly helping us, then it allows us to question what we're doing and look for alternatives potentially. But from a farmer's point of view, there are going to be agronomists out there that are experts in chemical, which is great, and we need that. We're not anti-chemical at all. And when you have a disease or you have a pest, we need to deal with it, because it is their livelihood that we're talking about, that crop needs to get through. So it's very understandable. And we do need at times to probably add some inputs into crops, but nowhere near at the levels that we're currently doing it at. And if we can have agronomists or the like, or soil health experts or coaches that have an understanding of both chemical and biological, I think they are going to become very valuable to a farmer, because they have the farmer's interest at heart, and that they know a wider variety of what they to grow, how to grow a plant.
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit more deeper, but before that, soil lovers, we're going to take a quick break, so stick with us. Hey there, soil lovers. Sorry for this quick interruption, but I just wanted to let you know about an exciting project that I've been working on in 2023. I was sitting there late last year thinking, I really love business and marketing, but I also really love soil. What can I do? Well, I joined the dots and connected them together and created Soil Connect. That's right, soilconnect.com.au is a dedicated digital marketing agency for soil caring businesses. Finally, there is a digital marketing agency that understands how to word things for soil, understands the regenerative movement, and understands that iStock images on your post is just not going to cut it. These are real life situations that I had from clients that were asking for marketing help. So many came to me when they saw the marketing that I was doing, and also with the podcast, and said, how do you do it? We need someone like you. And I said, well, let me create that business. So that's where Soil Connect came into the picture, and I created a digital agency that is dedicated to soil caring businesses. So if that sounds like you, or you know someone that needs some help with their digital marketing and growing their reach online, then head over to soilconnect.com.au and let's book a chat to see how we can work together. Well, I'll let you get back to the show. Welcome back, soil lovers. You're hanging out with Regen Ray and Darren from Best Farming Systems. We've just been talking about the importance of working with the right people that really understand the mindset, and really importantly, agronomists that get the type of farming that you're doing. Darren, you were sharing about the fact that, we're not anti-chemical, and that's great. And I think we can see an example of that in India, where they basically banned nitrogen fertilizer, and the whole food system collapsed and went into, protests and starvation and massive amounts of problems. And I think with any kind of system that needs to be repaired or healed or reversed, it's a slow process. So how important is it working with the right team, and what kind of things do you need to look for, or maybe questions you need to ask when partnering with an agronomist that can help you with this kind of pathway?
Yeah, interesting enough, we don't know everything. without any doubt. We are still learning, you know, and there is so much in the soil that we don't understand yet. So that's the first thing. I think if the minute we start thinking we know everything, you know, we're probably doomed for failure, you know. So I think we're always looking for that. But we are definitely not. In fact, you are so right about the devastating effect it had on some of these overseas countries that decided to just ban everything straight out, and all of a sudden their food became very scarce because no one could grow anything. And we've had that happen too here. People that go cold turkey have probably been stung a little bit. So, which is why our research has shown, and with a history of our 15 years now, we know we can help farmers get off that high input bandwagon and assist them in slowly coming back to a much lower level of input costs. And in turn, then they can sleep at night because their risk factor on that crop as well is a lot lower for it to get to the end. So it is a gradual process, Ray, and it's something that you know, in our system we would recommend a 20% reduction in fertilizer and then pull back a bit more every year after that. So it's not something that, we would certainly not recommend anyone to just stop doing everything that they're doing. In fact, the beauty of our program is they don't have to change anything on their program. If they add our products sort of into the program, they can then just start reducing what they're doing. They don't need to change anything. They don't need any special equipment. Our product goes out with a lot of other chemicals as well, so it can fit into their program. It can go in with herbicide program because it's not a product it's not biology that we're adding. So we're able to put it in with these chemicals, which is the beauty and why we've done so well, because it makes it easy for a farmer to bring into their system. So yes, it's a gradual thing to get off that bandwagon, but very rewarding because, like I say, the farmers, you know, instead of stressing over the amount of money they've spent on their crops and how you can imagine how stressful it is when they get a disease or something in their crop and they've already all in at the moment for that crop and they're so reliant on it getting through to the end. You could imagine they get a disease, well, they've got to spend another lot of money to fix it. They're so scared about losing it, and then they just get deeper and deeper into those crops. So it gets harder for them, and, you know, I feel for them because they are risk takers. Every time they put something in the ground, it is a huge risk. So much can go wrong because we're dealing with nature. Yeah,
more risky than Bitcoin investment, I reckon.
I reckon, yes. Yep. Yeah.
Some of the farmers that have lost, you know, whole hectares of, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and people don't know that. You know, they don't see that side of the farming world. They just see that the produce at the other end, and it's too small, it's too green, it's this, that, it bends. But the amount of stuff that goes wrong and causes massive amounts of pain and hardship, seeing a product that's going to, you know, give light to that, and the fact that it works so nicely into what people are already doing, I think that's really important because, you know, if it was an extra pass that the farmer had to do, you know, that's extra time and, you know, more things on the to-do list that's never shrinking. You know, so the fact that it integrates really well, you know, and you use so less, it's almost like, so I don't have to use a lot and I just do it in what I'm already doing. Sounds too good to be true almost. And I think that's one of the things that you challenge with because people want it to be hard work sometimes in order to see the results.
That's right.
Just on the note, on the note of the agronomists, like what are the type of things that should the agronomists be talking more about, like soil health and like biology from the day that you meet them? Or is it a transition that happens together? Like if people are already with an agronomist and they already know the farm, they know the data, do you find that it's easy to work with agronomists like that? Or is it sometimes better to start a bit newish and find someone who kind of gets the type of farming that you want to transition to? Is there more openness to change?
Yeah, sure. So agronomists, and they're very important in the world of agriculture without any doubt, you know. So farmers are very reliant on information and they are very educated on rescue chemistry and what have you in crops, and also for growing and nutrition as well. So they're no doubt very important. But for me, biology is something I'd love for them to probably just take some time out to get a bit of an understanding of the importance of it, and how in their program, without making too many changes, like we've talked about, how we can get away with not upsetting that biological activity. And that is generally, unfortunately, sometimes that means less of something rather than more, which probably doesn't sit very well with some. And it's even difficult for convincing farmers to have a go. I mean, if they're told they've got to put out, 300 kilograms of a fertilizer, and you say, no, just do 250, they're very reluctant. They just think, oh my God, am I going to lose my yield on my crop, So it's really about educating and realizing that if we can have active biology in our soil, and they are going to be able to unlock nutrients that are potentially locked up and tied up in that soil that are not available, if we can get at those nutrients and get them into the plant, well, then we're not going to need anywhere near as much nutrition in crop if we can get it naturally. And the beauty of getting it naturally, like we're talking about via biology, is we're giving the plant a lot more resistance against some of the environmental impacts, where our stem cells of the plant are thicker, and we have higher sugars and carbohydrates into the plant, and it gives it natural resistance against pest attacks and disease and things like that. So this is the benefit of going down this system. You'll find not only can you reduce your fertilizer costs, but as the years progress, you're limiting, and most of our people will be using 70 to 80% less fungicides and less pesticides in their programs as the years progress, because they don't need them anymore, because the crop or the plant actually has the resistance against those problems, those issues.
Wow. And with the cost of these inputs going up, that's a very big cost saving as well. So in your current world and mind, what would a 70% reduction in some of these inputs be as a dollar value? Like, we're talking hundreds of dollars or $10,000 or plus?
Yeah, hundreds of dollars. It could be, depending on some crops are very high input crops, and they spend a lot of money on them, and a lot of rescue chemistry as well, and a lot of prone to disease. So, there's always some sort of issue, whether it's too wet or too dry or something, and there's we get a disease because it is too wet. There's always something that a farmer's got to do. So if we can alleviate some of the needs for some of those sprays, and a lot of them do 3 and 4 and 5 sprays of fungicides in crop because they're getting disease. So some of them can spend $300 and $400 on a sort of a hectare of on a crop, and hoping to get a $600 hectare yield out of it, so you can imagine that's a fair risk to, if you can do it for, $100 or $120 and still get $600. Well, you can obviously see you're much better off from a profitability point of view.
Yeah, even if the yield wasn't at what you expected, even if the yield did drop a little bit during that transition, you're in a net position. I think sometimes that's why it's important focusing on profit per hectare rather than yield, because the yield might drop, but if you've done less work, applied less inputs that cost you less money, then your bottom line is in a positive position. I think changing that conversation, or getting more people to understand from a business point of view, is, it's profit per hectare. And a lot of farmers don't build their time on the tractor to that hectare either. They're just working as a volunteer. So
they're almost unpaid work, isn't it? They don't get a weekly wage that comes in. They just get a dump of money at the end of a season, don't they? And they don't really.
If they're lucky, that's right.
If they're lucky, so true. And we all know
banks
that
get it first, and the bills get it first, and everyone gets the money first.
Banks.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. No, it's a really exciting place to be in a space where, and we are helping farmers every single day get off that high bandwagon. And there's another element to this as well. Realistically, farmers' job is to grow food, and food integrity is also a huge thing, Ray, which is, I know we could probably talk nearly 45 minutes on each one of these topics. I guess we're sort of slicing over them, but food integrity is so important, and our nutrient density of our food, since the use of fertilizers has really dropped quite considerably. And that is in turn making us want to eat more as a people, because we eat for nutrient density. So if there's less nutrients in our food, then we're looking for, other things to sort of eat, because we're not getting it, and which is creating, as you can imagine, a lot of health problems. So under our system, we go back to that food integrity. We actually grow very, very healthy food with really good nutrient density in the food, really high protein in our grains. We have lower screenings as well, so less wastage, I guess, in a crop as well. So you're utilising more of it. And at the end of the day, it's great for us to get food on our shelves that is high in nutrient density, because we are going to be much healthier for it.
Yeah. Amazing. I think, your catchphrase in the company is it all starts in the soil. And I think that's very, very true, because, it's a domino effect of positiveness. So, healthy soil, healthy plant, healthy, humans, healthy healthcare, healthy everything, and it's a real nice domino effect to be working with. And nutrient density is definitely a word that's been coming up more and more. And I love the fact that this conversation has gone there, because, at the end of the day, that is the end product and the results. We can talk about farmer yields and profits and time on the tractor, but at the end of the day, it's a more better quality product that gets into the mouths of the people who buy in it. And then that affects our gut health, our mental health, our nation's stability on healthcare, and feeling nourished and full, rather than always hungry, even though we're spending a bucket load on food these days, So I think nutrient density is a nice word that is becoming more and more mainstream, is people buying food because of its quality and not just by the kilos,
Yeah, and I think that change too has to come from the consumer, Ray, I reckon, like I think we've got to start wanting to know where, not just what's in our product like we have at the moment, but how's it grown, what's been used to grow that sort of food, and where it's come from, is it grass fed? Is it grain fed? And even if it's grain fed, was that grain used with a lot of chemical? Was it done biologically? So would make an absolute difference to the food that we're putting in our mouths. So and that change will come. The consumer will start demanding, I guess, that's what they want to eat. And when that change happens, then that will be the norm. And in fact, the biological farming, or I don't like the organic one, because I actually believe that I'm all for organic food. Don't get me wrong; it's really good, but we can also biologically not have chemical residues in our food, even if we're using a little bit of food, if we're doing everything correctly. So organic food shouldn't be expensive. We've got it reversed. If we're growing things naturally, it shouldn't be costing us more money. We should actually should be taxes on growing food for using synthetic chemicals. So we're sort of, unfortunately, the food we grow in bulk is cheaper, so that's what we tend to go for. But I think it'll happen. Maybe not in my time, but I think eventually, if these farmers, one by one, they're already starting to, they know that their job is to grow food, and I'm sure that even for their own family and their own mouths, they want to grow healthy food. So the change is sort of on its way.
Interesting. I want to sit with that a little bit more, because I want to just highlight what I believe you're saying is that if a product that's maybe not authorized under the organic scheme is used and the soil has a right biological makeup, it can actually remove all the traces of that chemical at the finished product. Is that correct?
That is correct. We actually have data. We actually get our grains tested at times. But so it's not so our product is actually organically registered, but 95% or more of our customers are conventional farmers, which is really interesting. So it's more about if a farmer isn't organic, but he's using limited chemical or lesser amounts. When we test grain under that biological system, again, its biology has the ability to lock up or tie up those chemicals that are there. So the food is grown and tested without any chemical in it at all. So we actually have chemical-free grains that we can grow under a biological system. Just because you use a bit of chemical doesn't mean that you can't grow something that is chemically free at the end of its lifestyle. So that's exactly right.
Wow. That's, and I think it's, I've heard another system the same, where like in livestock, there's this big problem with methane apparently. And there is a biological critter that exists that actually eats the methane, but it needs to be in the right environments. The problem is that we're putting the cows in the wrong environments and feeding them grain, which they're not meant to be eating. And that causes the problem. So if we let when we let nature do what nature does best, it already has systems to create equilibrium or balanced systems, as you mentioned before. But it's the fact that we farm without that causes the problem. And then we focus on that too much. And I think that's another example where, if the crops are grown in very highly biologically stable soils, then a lot of the things that exist as a problem will kind of just disappear or kind of fade away.
Yep, they do. They disappear, and we have proof of that happening. We know that over the years, as your soil health improves, that the plant it becomes resistant against some of these like pest attacks, for instance. If we can get more sugar and more nutrient density into the things that we're growing. It's interesting. A lot of bugs don't have pancreases, so they can't digest sugar, so they don't touch them. They'll actually go and get weaker crops that are grown synthetically. So we're actually sort of opening ourselves up for more pest attacks by growing with high inputs, where if we go biologically, we can actually give the plant the resistance it needs to protect itself without having to spray anything else over it.
Who would have thought nature had a solution for it to protect itself?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll never beat nature, Ray. I could tell you that. We try to think we're smarter than her, but she'll always win, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's so you've got a poster behind you for those who are watching on the video version, and it says TM Agriculture. So that's the name of the product that you put on the paddock. Is that correct?
That's our signature product. We do have a few others. We have a whole system now of helping farmers once they get off it, but our signature product is TM Agricultural. That's our biostimulant. We do have a product which is TM Agricultural with a bit of fertilizer that goes on the seed as well. We talked earlier, you mentioned, I think we've hardly touched on seed dressing, but it is one way that we can apply the product. I think it is one way that can be done. And we have a few other, we have a foliar fertilizer as well that we supply that is our preferred way of fertilizing, because rather than having it sitting on the ground sort of all year round waiting for the conditions to be right to be able to access that and maybe not getting the best value for our money out of that fertilizer. If we lose a lot, we may not get the whole benefit of putting fertilizer out. So we'll give nutrition in crop via foliar fertilizers is our preferred way, and it doesn't upset the biological activity in the soil then, because it's taken up quite quickly by the plant. So we have a whole system, but our signature product, without a doubt, is the starting point is getting your biology fired up. And if farmers concentrate on their soil health as well as what they're growing, they're really going to start seeing the benefits down the track.
What's the number one thing that people say to you as a bit of a I'll try it later, or why do they build resilience to saying, yes, let's give this a go? And how can farmers overcome that when listening to this conversation?
I think it is difficult for them because they're very isolated probably in this industry. If they go down this path, they're probably ostracized a little bit by their fellow neighbours, and they'll go to the pub and they probably don't talk about it. And in fact, sometimes they probably even put this stuff out without even telling their agro they're doing it, So I guess that's the one inhibiting factor they have, is probably pressure from other people to say, oh, that stuff doesn't work, or, and I'll just challenge them to, listen to the science, because the science is there. Anyone that tells you that there's no trial data on this stuff, the science is there. It's actually there well before we even had fertilizers. People talked about this. So the science is there, and listen to your gut. And if you feel like something's not right, do something about it, make a change, because you can make a difference actually, and we can help get you off that high input bandwagon that you feel like you're sort of on and can't get away from.
Listen to your gut was the last thing I heard.
Yeah, so I think listen to your gut. Don't sort of be swayed by other people, thought there's plenty of science out there on what it is. So if you feel like something's not right in your current system, without a doubt, trust your gut and make a change, because you can make a difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because you know, with a lot of the work that I've done in the past, that was one of the first things that people said, is that I feel like isolated and alone. And I feel like over the last 5 years, that has definitely changed. There's a lot more Facebook group communities. You mentioned as well that, you know, you link all your customers together and create a community. And I think that is where a lot of the magic is happening, where people are able to rub shoulders with others who, you know, see the world and think the same, and they're like-minded, and they realize, yeah, you might be on, you know, on the other side of the world, but we're doing very similar things. Our values are aligned, and we hang out in this community. Even if it is a phone call or a Zoom video or something like that, it makes you realize that you're not alone as much as what you might feel at the pub, you know, and that is definitely a very big thing in the pharma world, is the pub conversations and how that ego is affected at those conversations. And you're right, a lot of people do, you know, shove this under the rug and don't talk about it. But I think the other side of things is happening as well, where a lot of these farmers are now ringing up their neighbor and going, are you doing that thing that, you know, was a bit on the fringe a few years ago? I'm interested because nothing's working for me anymore, and my cost of urea and everything is through the roof, you know. So,
and it does take time, Ray. They need to probably work it out for themselves. You know, I guess it's a bit of a process for them. It's very difficult to sort of come off that what they have been doing, and what they've been doing, you know, is working to a degree. It just must be getting harder and harder for them. So if you feel like it is, I know we can help. And you talk about that. We've got we've got so many customers now that are happy to talk to other people. So you're right about being isolated, that you don't need to be that anymore. There are a lot of people in this space, and there's plenty of help out there. Yeah, and plenty of I guess to make yourself sort of feel better that you're okay with doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Who, you know, and 2-3 years ago, there was no soil dedicated podcast. And now there's a dozen of them, you know, I'm one of them creating content. So having these conversations helps people go, oh, there's others listening, and there's thousands and thousands of people listening every month. And so you can't be alone or feel alone. So just reach out and ask for connections and being invited into communities. Darren, are you ready to become the voice of the soil?
The voice of the soil? No, not really.
Well, you're about to. So, Darren, you have become the soil. You've embodied its energy. You know, it could be one word, it could be a sentence, but you are the mouthpiece of the soil. What would you say to everyone on the planet as the soil?
Wow. Don't forget me. Look after me. Don't abuse me. I am probably the classic case of, if you look after me, I'll look after you 10 times over.
Amazing. Well said. 100%. Couldn't agree more. That is very well put, you know, on the spot. And you did an amazing job being the voice of the soil, because you're right. A lot of, you know, for many years, soil was forgotten. It was just this dirt beneath our feet, and we're too busy exploring the deep oceans and Mars and the stars and the sun. And we know more about all them than what we do about the thing that feeds us and keeps us alive under the feet. And the 10x multiplier. I couldn't agree more that if you look after it, you know, you give a little and it gives back way more.
Yeah, so, in droves.
Very well said. Yep, absolutely. Darren, how can the soil lovers hang out with you more? What are some of the websites and some of the things that they can follow you along to learn more about the best farming systems?
Yeah, just we are very active sort of around as well. So just look up Best Farming Systems Australia, where we've got social media outlets through there and a website, and it's Best Farming Systems on our website. So just Google us and we'll come up pretty sort of quickly, because we're not there's obviously this space is still not very congested. It's not like I'm trying to be a bricklayer in a city of Sydney, you know, so we're very easily around, and we're happy to talk to people as well. We love chatting to farmers. I get calls every day, and you know, I know they want to change, and they are looking for reassurance, and sometimes those conversations can last 2 or 3 years before they'll finally take the plunge and do something. So we'll put you on to like-minded people. But yep, you'll find us on the net. Best Farming Systems Australia is all you need to Google and search for us, and TM Agricultural is another one. You go on there, there'll be a lot of information on that product as well.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you guys go to a lot of field days. So on the website, and social medias, check out all the events, because you've got a very nice setup, and your, consultants come out and talk to people, and you do giveaways, and really, really, fun way of, engaging with the customers and potential clients, and getting them to understand what the system's all about and how to use the product with a lot of support. And, the whole boots on the ground, I think, is a really important thing, where there'll be like a local someone who can help you and get you underway. Yeah,
we're almost an education tent, to be honest, Ray, when we go to these field days where, whilst we're obviously pushing ourselves, I don't bring any product to the field days. We don't sell it there. We don't, discount our products and try to get people to jump in board because it's, cheap today only sort of stuff. We're just there to talk to farmers and to educate them about the benefits of active biology in your soil. That's really what we're all about. We are without a doubt about soil health and changing the mindset. So it's more of an education tent probably for us around field days. And yes, we probably go about 6 or 8 or 10 of them a year. It's been a bit restricted in the last few years because of COVID, but I'm glad we're back out talking to farmers again.
Yeah, great energy. I love the photos that you share on your social media, and really good to see so many people coming together and talking about soil health. And I know that our soil lovers listening will agree with you that the soil health is a great thing to focus on, and the fact that you're out there educating at these tents and field days is really, really important. So if you see the best tent at any of the field days, make sure you go over and chat to Darren and the team, and they'll definitely educate you and share some of the knowledge more than what we've spoken about on the podcast today.
Ray, I really appreciate too the work you've done in this space. I've got to say it's every sort of little bit helps. I've got to it's been a long journey of 14 years, and in those early years we'll certainly up against it, but we've held our ground. We're still around, and we're a growing industry, and I think it'll be the future.
Absolutely. I get emails every day of people saying, how do I get into this industry? Listening to the podcast, you've inspired me to quit my job and do something that's more impactful. And, guests like yourself with products and solutions and education is really inspiring people to go, I'm sick of my corporate job sitting at a computer typing code all day. And that's what's happening. Like, people who are developers want to develop apps for farmers. People who are been in certain industries for decades want to quit that and see how they can pivot into the ag space. And it all is about serving soil, which I think is really, really fascinating. Movement and trend that's happening.
Yeah, and interestingly, we started the conversation a bit about how I got into it, and I can honestly say, without a word of doubt, that there's not a day in the last 10 years of my life that I haven't minded getting up and coming to work. Of a Monday morning after my weekends, I don't struggle to get out of bed and come to work. I love what we do, and I'm very blessed because I've found this space in my life where if someone told me, I wasn't going to be here for I've got 12 months to live or something, and what would you change? Well, I don't know if I'd even change what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, so I don't think I'd not do what I'm doing now anyway.
Love that. I couldn't agree more. I'm saying ever since I've discovered the power of soil and working in this space, it's like the easiest thing to get up and hustle for every day.
Yep.
So on that note, Darren, I think we've left the listeners inspired to get into the soil industry and to explore the different products and offering. So thank you so much for coming on and having a yarn all about soil.
Thanks for having me, Ray. I've really appreciated it. And maybe I don't think I've got the bug to do podcasts just yet, but we'll see how this one goes, eh?
Damn it. All right. We'll see how we go. You might be in the heat of it at the moment, but when the buzzer wears off and you see the replay, you might change your mind. So there you go, soil lovers. That's another episode for you to sink your teeth in and dig deeper into the wonderful world of soil. Until next time, make sure that you get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper and deeper into the wonderful world of soil. I'm Regen Ray, and I'll catch you on the next show. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review, because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into your soils.